Could Manchester City finish above Arsenal? How embarrassing that would be for Arsenal fans and Arsenal Football Club, having put all their energy into beating Manchester City. We've got to beat Manchester City, finish above Manchester City, and we win the league, they said. And the importance of finishing above Arsenal and Manchester City finishing second, what is the importance of that? I know a lot of Manchester City fans will say, well, what's the difference between finishing second, finishing third, finishing fourth, finishing fifth? I mean, this season, fifth looks like it's going to get you a Champions League spot, so what's the difference? Does it matter where you finish? I would argue it does. Psychologically, going into next season, that statement of you must finish above City, it's what Arsenal thought was the most important thing to do. And I mean, Liverpool, they're doing their job this season, and Manchester City finishing above Arsenal, having the season that we've had as well, mind you. We've been absolutely crap. We've been plagued with injuries. As of Arsenal right now, they're suffering with a few injuries right now as well. But I mean, and so have we. You know what I mean? You're not the only ones. But have a look at this. This is the league table. 7 points behind Arsenal we are right now. So I firmly believe it's doable. Why not? Why not? I mean, Liverpool, by the way, let's show some respect, first of all, because they're running away with it. And as Manchester City fans, I think we can relate. We look up, and so and we go, I recognise that. I know what they're doing. I recognise it. It's familiar. You can sense the same sort of feelings we've had in the previous 4 seasons and seasons before that as well, where you're just looking at them and going that they're just better than everybody else. They're walking away with it. Manchester City are having a major off-season, a major rebuild season as well, and I like to think we'll come back stronger next season. But I wonder what Arsenal fans look at Liverpool thinking. Like, looking at that going, I don't get it. We get it as City fans. We know what you're doing. We can fully understand what you're doing. We fully recognise the ability of Liverpool Football Club, and their team right now is just they're the best team in the league, and they are cancering to a Premier League title. It's not a title race anymore. It's done, isn't it? Let's be honest. But City fans can recognise that level of quality, whereas Arsenal fans must be utterly confused. Like, why are they doing that, and why does City keep doing it? Why is it never us? Arsenal fans must be wondering. Must be very confusing to be an Arsenal fan this season, and zero sympathy because they're insufferable individuals, aren't they? So anyway, let's have a look at the fixtures for Manchester City going into the Premier League fixtures mainly. So we've got there's some tough ones. I'm going to show you the Arsenal fixtures in a minute as well and see how they fare against each other, because I would argue we've got the easier of the fixtures as well, which again bodes into that way of thinking that we could actually catch Arsenal, which is unbelievable to even think of it. Forest is going to be a very difficult game, and I think that's a real test for Forest to see how far they've come. They've started to falter a little bit. But obviously Brighton, the tough ones, the Brighton game and the Bournemouth game, but they're both at home. I think that helps us as well. Villa as well, another tough game for City at home. I'd say the toughest away games we've got is Forest and Everton. I mean, you're not going to throw United in there, are you? Surely we're going to, the way they're playing at the minute, surely we go there and beat them, but it's a Manchester derby. And then Fulham, last game of the season, where you're hoping Fulham are on the beach, you know, and their next season position has been established as they're not going to get into the top 4 or anything like that. So hopefully City can catch Fulham on an off day. But have a look at Arsenal's fixtures. I mean, you like to think they'd probably beat United the way they're playing, but you just never know. It's a historically feisty fixture, isn't it? Then they've got Chelsea at home. So, yeah, I mean, Chelsea, who knows? It's going to cause problems. And the whole thing with all of these Arsenal fixtures is you've got Champions League slotted in between some of these fixtures, where City have got FA Cup fixtures, which is a whole other aspect of this season, by the way. You know, we're in a situation where we could finish the season above Arsenal with a piece of silverware, where Arsenal chances of silverware are next to none right now, and they're hanging on to not get embarrassed by a side that have on a massive decline and could still finish above them, ending up in one of the most embarrassing seasons for Arsenal ever. Really, when you look at the standards that they'd set in previous seasons, in particular when you factor that in, it's poor. It's really poor. And I mean, Fulham at home, yeah, you never know. Everton away, no one wants to play them right now. No one wants to play Everton at the minute. And I mean, Brentford, they always cause Arsenal problems. Ipswich, you expect them to win. They've got Liverpool away at the end of the season, 3 games to go. Then Newcastle. You know, again, we don't have that level of difficulty in our fixtures. I'm convinced that our fixtures are much, much easier. We've got players coming back. You're adding Claudio Echeverri, who's just been revealed in a shopping bag sort of reveal from Manchester City, with an interesting reveal. We've got a new player who's about to join us, and he's training with us as of right now. So exciting times for Manchester City. But We've just got to do our job, most importantly. Manchester City, if we do our job like we did against Spurs yesterday, and have a look at these match stats, because I do think there's an interesting aspect to this, is I went into both the first half and the second half stats. This is obviously the full match, the full 90 minutes you're looking at, because I was concerned that why have Spurs got more possession than us? For arguably maybe one of the very, very few times this season, and very few times ever with a Pep Guardiola side, we concede possession to the opposition. It felt like a pragmatic turning of a corner for Pep's way of thinking a little bit, or maybe just a little bit more of it. It's Spurs. We know how well they can hold on to the ball. They are a possession-based side. Both halves, they had more possession than us, because I felt like it was a game of two halves. In terms of chances, I would say City should have put the game to bed before half-time yesterday, with the majority of our chances coming in the first half. Spurs got a lot of the chances in the second half, but they weren't quite as clear-cut as our chances in the first half. But possession-wise, both halves, Spurs had more of it. So I thought that was interesting, and there was a very much a different setup from Pep in terms of the personnel. It was very much a strong defence with a couple of solid midfielders in front of them, and then just 4 out-and-out attackers. So there's a defence and an attack, with not much of a creative midfield, with only really Nico Gonzalez being that player to link the defence to the attack throughout that game yesterday. And I thought it was an interesting ploy from Pep Guardiola, and it should have worked better than it did. I think we should have won that game 3 or 4-0, and the game should have been done by half-time. And we almost played transition football, counter-attacking football, which is something I've not seen Pep do for quite some time, but with Savinho and Doku, and I'm incredibly excited about Doku and what he's going to deliver for the rest of the season, because I think he's almost unplayable on his day. We just got he's on end product watch a little bit, but still yesterday I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was brilliant against Liverpool, 2 games in a row. Our best player, arguably. I'll go into the player ratings in a minute now. But having a look at Ederson, the 6 saves that he made, and he was also involved in that first goal, which it started from Ederson, a pass into Marmoush, lovely turn into Savinho out to Doku into Haaland, 1-0. I thought it was really good from Ederson, then his distribution was good, but most importantly, there was a save from Son, and I think it was about the 75th, 80th minute. It was a really big save, really important save for Manchester City to get the 3 points yesterday. Got us over the line yesterday, Ederson, in all honesty. And some of the saves I thought you expect him to make, but it was an almost faultless goalkeeping performance. The fact that he's got a clean sheet to his name as well, so I've given him man of the match. Kassanov, he's a pleasure. He's a pleasure to watch. I love watching this guy, and the burst of speed that he's got. He puts on the afterburners, and there was moments yesterday where he was it looked like a transition was about to happen, but it just suddenly explodes, and he's just running at this speed, and it just like whoomph, it just accelerates all of a sudden, and it's just like, wow, the distance he covers in such a short space of time. Very Kyle Walker-esque, but solid, well-timed tackles. I thought his positioning was fantastic yesterday. There was the Kulusevski on the right-hand side and Son on the left-hand side. Both got over to either sides of the pitch and covered Manchester City's problems, because we were open and vulnerable, and he stifled it. He just killed the game. He killed the game for Manchester City yesterday, and I thought it was really good. There was a couple of sloppy touches in the first half, a couple of loose passes, but you're being critical there. I'm nitpicking. And he popped up with a key pass as well. What a signing. I can't wait for the future of Kassanov and what he's going to bring. Vardiol, pretty solid defensively. We've grown to expect a little bit more going forward, I think, some lovely cross-field passes. I saw him switch the ball a couple of times on the money onto Savinho. Most of the time he was aiming for some lovely cross-field passes. Like I said, you expect a bit more going forward, but I don't think we needed him going forward that much. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I felt like there was very much a defence and an attack, and it was to let the guys up front do their thing. Savinho, Doku, Marmoush and Haaland, have at it. Just tear them apart up there, and we'll protect what we've got back here. And it's very unlike Pep, but it kind of worked yesterday against Spurs. He was a little low on his ground-winning duels, but a steady performance, and he's got a clean sheet as well, so he gets a little bump in the score. Diaz led the back line really, really well. I think most of City's defending actually had to be done out wide, really. Not much of a threat coming through the middle of Spurs' attack yesterday. They often resorted to going out wide, thinking we would be exposed, because we often do send Nunes or Walker or whoever it's been this season going down that right side, and Vardiol more often than not going down the left side. We leave those channels open, and they wanted to go down there, but more often than not, there was very little opportunities for Spurs to actually expose us down those sides yesterday. And it was only really Núñez who came forward more than anyone out of that defence. So little for Diaz to actually do. But yeah, I thought he controlled the back line really well, and I thought he was pretty composed on the ball as well for Ruben Diaz. Núñez, I think all of the back four getting a little bump in their score for keeping a clean sheet. I think Núñez actually probably had the most difficult job out of everyone in the back four, because he's the one who had to invert into midfield and go alongside Kovacic. And when we had the ball, it was a Kovacic and Núñez defensive midfield with Gonzalez sort of just drifting a little bit in the 8 position, pushing in front of them. Like I said, trying to be that link between attack and defence. But having that option, and not only did Núñez come on the overlap and got a few crosses in, he was seen going on the underlap of Savinho a couple of times and getting a couple of crosses in. It wasn't a scintillating performance. There was a couple of times he got beat down that right back side, but I still thought it was a good performance from Matheus Núñez. So yeah, I think I would argue he should be the number 1 right back now for the rest of the season, especially if you're going to play Kusanov in the middle. And I think having Kusanov, who can play out right back as well, gives us a bit more options out there. And obviously Rico Lewis, I think he's gone down the pecking order a little bit this season, which is a shame. But Gonzalez, I thought he had a quiet performance, even though he was that link. You can see that with the 39 touches in midfield, which is very quiet for a midfielder. I still thought he was positive, though. I felt like everything he did was a positive way of thinking. Get the ball forward, get the ball, look for a positive pass, and get it to Haaland, get it to Marmoush, Savinho or Doku, whoever it may be. And he didn't make any mistakes either, which is an important thing to say for a Manchester City midfield this season. But like I said, he played that a little bit higher up the pitch, and I thought it was a reasonably good performance from Gonzalez, and he came off around the 70th minute or something like that, wasn't it? But yeah, still pretty good for Gonzalez. Kovacic, I want to see this partnership grow. I wanted to see it as soon as we signed Gonzalez. How's he going to play with Kovacic? And recent weeks, Kovacic has actually been dropped more often than not and not played, which I've been a little bit surprised at, because I think Kovacic has been a reasonably solid player for City this season. He's not been one of our worst players. You know, when we talk about the players that have caused us problems this season, his name doesn't come up. You know, he quietly goes about his business, Kovacic, and I felt like a quiet first half, but when we were attacking, there wasn't much for him to do, because we were attacking most of the game in the first half. In the second half, he put in some vital tackles. There were, again, a couple of transitions, and you can see with the number of tackles that he's got, he was putting in really important tackles in that second half, that while Kusanov was putting in some important ones himself, I think in front of him, Kovacic was doing even more, you know. So I felt like it was a really good performance from Kovacic yesterday. Bernardo Silva came on for 16 minutes for Nico G. I was actually really pleased with Bernardo Silva, and he's come under a fair bit of criticism this season. I thought his attitude was top. Won 3 tackles, he entered into 6 ground duels, and that's in 16 minutes. You know, maintained 100% passing accuracy, which is 8 out of 8 passes, if you're wondering. You can't ask much more for a substitute appearance, because his job was kind of the same as Nico Gonzalez's: link, attack, and defence together, and, you know, be that middleman between everything. And I felt like in the 16 minutes he played, he did a pretty good job yesterday, Bernardo Silva. Foden, he came on for Marmoush. Not quite as meaningful appearance as Bernardo Silva, but it could have been. Could have been, with a lovely little chip to Haaland, which, I mean, that whole decision became a bit of a farce. I mean, I think we have to accept the referee's on-the-field decision was difficult to overturn for VAR, because it's like there is no conclusive shot of the full football. You know, I can see why the referees eventually got to that decision, but I think if that had been costly, there'd have been a serious argument for Manchester City to say what has gone on there, because it didn't look good. It didn't paint a pretty picture for VAR. There was very little clarity in what was going on. I think that's the key point for why VAR couldn't really get involved, because it wasn't clear and obvious, which is the statement which continuously gets used as to whether a decision can be made on a certain decision or not. So I struggled to make my mind up on that one. So yeah, anyway, could have been a Foden assist is the point. He got fouled a lot as well when he came on, didn't he? They were battering him, you know. And yeah, Foden, I think we need to get into next season for Phil Foden, in terms of the fact that he started the game on the bench is an indication of how he's been playing lately. And City played very well in that first half when he wasn't in the starting 11. So yeah, I wouldn't have any objections to seeing him on the bench for the rest of the season if we continue to start games the way we started it in the first half against Spurs yesterday. I'm not going to talk about the other subs, which was Grealish, Gundogan and McAtee, because they all came on in the 90th minute, so not much to talk about there. Marmoush, I think he's still finding his feet. You know, I think there's moments of genuine quality that you can see there. You can just say, wow, yeah, special player we've got here. not quite producing a level of consistency that we would need to see at the top level to certainly win Premier League titles. We need to see the output a little bit more frequently. You know, that hat-trick against Newcastle is all we've got to really shout about, and that's a hell of a lot to shout about because it was impressive, very impressive. You can never question his work rate, though. He's got really good defensive numbers there, and he wins the ball high up, which is a key trait to any Pep Guardiola attacking midfielder, centre forward, winger. It's an important trait to have, and it'll get you into many starting 11s that Pep Guardiola's picking. You know, and you start popping up with goals a little bit more frequently, and I think, you know, alongside Haaland, Marmoush's goals that, you know, the Eintracht Frankfurt record was unbelievable. If you can bring even 2/3 of that level of goals over to City, yeah, we're in a serious title race next season. Doku, Jeremy. He's unplayable in the first half. I thought he was absolutely sensational. Again, technically, it wasn't his assist. It hasn't gone down as his assist because I think he was actually looking for Savinho, maybe. It ended up being deflected, that cross, into Haaland. But he created so many other chances. There was the Savinho sitter in the first half. Like, what a miss. I mean, we'll be talking about Savinho in a minute. Haaland had a sitter as well, which forced a save at least. Savinho put it over the bar. Well, he bounced it off the ground and over the bar. Whereas Haaland, at least he forced a save. Again, that should have been Doku 2 assists, and he was unlucky not to get the assist for the other one. We could have been talking about a hat-trick of assists here for Jeremy Doku, which wouldn't have been the first time he's done it, because he did it against Bournemouth last season, where he actually got 4 assists and a goal. So, yeah, anyone who put him in the fantasy team for that week was absolutely buzzing. So many left foot crosses, by the way. Did you notice? Left foot crosses. So it makes you wonder, if we'd just swap the wingers, would there not be a little bit more of a natural tendency to cross with your stronger foot? I know the idea is to be able to cut inside, and we saw Doku do that, where he came in on the edge of the area and he feinted a shot, and then eventually got his shot away on the edge of the area, was going in that bottom corner and forced a save from Vicario. That's the strengths to putting a right footer on the left side and a left footer on the right side. That's the strengths to it when you have a tendency to cut inside. But the style of football that we play, the style of football that Haaland wants, and the chemistry that he can build between his wingers, going into that middle central area of the penalty box, if he knows when that cross is coming in because the Savinho's got to the byline or Doku's got to the byline, it's going to be a first-time cross. Haaland knows when that cross is coming in. And I would argue it was a game where we probably should have played them on opposite sides of the wing and seen a bit more of a natural crossing ability coming into the box, especially when these players are getting to the byline and crossing it hard and low, you know? So, yeah, one to think about at least. Savinho, really frustrating performance because finishing is the obvious place to start with Savinho. 6 shots, 1 on target. He had to finish that first chance that I've just mentioned where he bounced it over the bar. I still think he contributes so much positivity though towards the game, and I think he'll continue to grow. I think he just needs to such emphasis needs to be placed on his training in the off season, going into next season, and composure and decision making. He has to get better at it, Savinho, because too often he gets into positions where we should be killing teams, killing them. And it's either a poor finish, the bad decision whether he should be passing and he's shooting when he should be passing. You know, little moments like that for Savinho. But his ability to get into those dangerous areas, like Jeremy Doku in a way, where I'd argue Doku's definitely worked on his end product because he's cropping up with, well, what yesterday should have been a hat-trick of assists and was very unlucky to come away with 0 assists yesterday, Jeremy Doku. Whereas Savinho, I think, again, end product is going to be the key points to both of those players. And if they can build a relationship with Haaland, with Marmoush behind them, I think it's exciting. It's exciting times for Manchester City. But yeah, Savinho's still a little bit frustrated with his performance yesterday. Haaland gets the only goal of the game, so a 7 feels harsh. I feel harsh giving him a 7. 2 big chances missed though. You know, he did force a save from those at least, but he didn't seem very mobile. I'm just praying that injury still isn't bothering him a little bit. I felt like it was one of those games where Savinho and Doku did all the running and Haaland just like waltzed into the penalty area. Go on, guys, you do your thing. I'm just going to get myself in the box and wait for the cross. You know, and more often than not, it was, well, 2 times he got on the end of it and didn't finish it. And one time, he did finish it and got himself a goal. He didn't seem very mobile outside of those moments. In particular, in the first half, Haaland was a better player than he was in the second half. And he was very unlucky to not come away with 2 goals, which have definitely helped his score. And he took that very, very well. You know, so, I mean, I do feel harsh giving him a 7, considering we won the game 1-0 and he's the goal scorer. But I felt like his contribution outside of that could have been a little bit better. You're just hoping that his mobility isn't still lingering from that injury that he had. I mean, he obviously is fit enough to play the 90 minutes. So, yeah, you're going into the Plymouth game wondering, is he going to play against Plymouth as well, which would be interesting. But Manchester City get the job done once again. Will we finish above Arsenal? I like to think we're going to finish above Forest with 11 games to go. But the importance of going into next season and making ourselves that team that if you finish above City, you win the league. That's a psychological aspect. Because I think twice out of the last 13 seasons, we finished outside of the top 2. 3rd and 4th in those seasons, and one of them was with Pep, in Pep's first season. 8 seasons in a row, Manchester City have finished either 1st or 2nd, and that makes us the team to beat. And if we start finishing 3rd and start finishing 4th, then we're not the team to beat. It's a psychological attachment to our name going into future seasons that if we finish 2nd this season, next season, we're still the team to beat because Liverpool beat us and they won the league. And that's the way we should go into every season, where we are the benchmark for the rest of for future seasons. And we have been for the previous 8. And only twice in the last 13 we've dropped out of that position. So I think it's really important. Even though there is no difference, you don't get a trophy for finishing 2nd. Arsenal, recognise that. 2nd again, ole ole. Could be 3rd. Blues, let me know your thoughts. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now.